Let's take a trip back to Earth 6160 when the Ultimate Avengers go on a killing spree to retrieve the body of a long-dead ally. If that sounds kind of weird, it's a lot weirder than you think. Let's talk about it right here in our review of the Ultimates number 10 from Marvel Comics. See you in 3. Welcome back to Comical Opinions. Before we dig into the review, here's a quick recap of what happened last time. When we left Earth 6160 and the Ultimates number 9, we met the Ultimate Luke Cage as a career prisoner whose life mimicked the real-life radical activist and convicted murderer George Jackson. Not exactly the hero archetype you would have picked, but you know, it is what it is. When Luke was granted the abilities of Power Man, courtesy of a box he was secretly given by Iron Lad, Luke used his power to stage a prison revolt and take over the prison, even though some of the prisoners belonged in prison, but okay, sure, let's go with that. When Iron Lad arrived to welcome Luke Cage to the team, Luke refused the offer. Instead, he chose to remain a prisoner, transferring from one prison to the next to tear down the prison system from the inside. Alright, so let's dig into the current issue. In the Ultimates number 10, the writer's barely disguised fetish is what we'll subtitle this. It gets even weirder. The story begins with Jim Hammond, aka the robot known as the original Human Torch, who was made famous during World War II and served with Namor and Captain America as part of the Invaders, recounts how he was the one responsible for the death of Adolf Hitler during World War II. The memory puts a smile on his face and keeps him warm at night, which is kind of an odd observation to make for somebody who's a robot. Where is Jim telling this story? He's telling it to the current batch of Avengers, the Ultimates, as they prepare to invade a gated compound, one of several across the North American region, populated by the families of this group calling itself the Red Skulls, a neo-fascist group with a diverse range of sort of anti-establishment ideologies. Why are the Ultimate Avengers raiding a gated compound? We're not told until they reach the target, but it's not what you think it's going to be. Rather than engage in a frontal assault on the compound, the Avengers sneak in first. Wasp and Ant-Man enter the ears of the guards and explode them from the inside, making quite a bloody mess. Captain America knocks out everyone he encounters with a shield. Human Torch burns the resistance to ash and bone. Eventually, the team enters the compound's headquarters to find their target, Namor. But he's dead, stuffed and mounted on a wall like a prize swordfish. They're greeted by the current Red Skull, a person whose civilian identity is unknown. Apparently, being a Red Skull is a mantle that's passed from one person to the next over time. The Red Skull explains his predecessor retrieved Namor's body years ago after Namor was executed after a coup in Atlantis. His body was banished to the seas to discourage martyr worship, and the Red Skull's predecessor just found the body and brought it back just to look cool on the wall. Suddenly a fight breaks out and the Ultimate Avengers engage in combat with the Red Skull's men. The Avengers eventually leave after they kill all of the Red Skull's entourage, and the Red Skull disappears by teleporting away. The issue ends with Iron Lad still recovering from his injuries after the battle with the Hulk, wiping out the Red Skull's internet data and funds, considered a form of ultimate canceling, I guess, and Captain America recognizing that the man behind the Red Skull mask is a former sidekick. And that's the issue. I told you it was bizarre, so let's talk about impressions and art and all the good stuff. I'm not sure how to say this. There is ample evidence in the Ultimates number 11 to suggest that writer Dennis Camp struggles with the understanding and the definition of what it means to be a hero. We'll talk about the particulars down below, primarily in the negative section, but it's fair to say Camp has lost the plot, both literally and figuratively, because there is nothing heroic going on in this comic. Before we talk about the pros and cons, let's focus on the art for a second. The art is great. Let's be clear about that. The art is fantastic. It's a little nauseating, depicting some of the violence we see in this issue that people who are supposed to be heroes are undertaking, but it still looks good. Juan Frigeri gives the original Jim Hammond an upgrade that makes him look sort of like industrial, almost steampunkish, rather than just a person who's engulfed in flames. And it's a cool visual. The action is well choreographed, even given the context, and the gore is thankfully kept to a minimum where necessary. So let's talk about what's great about the Ultimates number 10. Beyond Juan Frigeri's art, seeing Jim Hammond in action is kind of the highlight of this issue, I think. As much as I love the current Human Torch, which is Johnny Storm, part of the Fantastic Four, this issue evokes the spirit of the original Invaders And that's a good thing for readers who have a fondness for that title, especially their exploits during World War II, which this is sort of evoking, but it's not, because this is not World War II. The Ultimates are not at war with this group of people, so the setting is wrong. But for folks who want that sort of Avenger versus Nazi fighting feel, this kind of gets it, sort of. Maybe not exactly, but kind of. Which brings us to the negatives. Context matters. Setting matters. The setup matters. Dennis Camp's plot, direction, purpose, context, and setting do not make sense here for what they're trying to do. And honestly, the amount of violence and the things that our heroes do for very little reason verges on sickening. The Ultimate Avengers attacked a guarded compound unprovoked. There was no battle happening. There was no skirmish. There was nobody in danger. This is just a bunch of families living in a gated community, or we call it a compound because it's concrete walls and barbed wire. But yeah, they're basically isolationists. They're living by themselves. They're not doing anything wrong in this particular moment. They might have committed crimes in the past or out in the open world, but there's nothing happening in this moment. The Avengers decide they're just going to attack them. They kill a bunch of men unprovoked, and then they leave with a corpse that's been dead for, in this case, it seems like years. Why is this okay? Apparently, murder is justified if the victims in question believe in, we'll call it, Nazi-adjacent ideologies. In effect, Dennis Camp has turned a group of heroes into a death squad, and that should be very concerning. Now, if you've heard that description, some readers are going to hear that and they're going to say, they're going to have a knee-jerk reaction to it. They're going to have some kind of feeling about it that says, wait a minute. Nazis are bad. The only good Nazi is a dead Nazi. Okay, we have to make some clarifications here, and there are very two specific reasons why the assessment is correct and not at all what you're knee-jerk reacting to. The first reason, which is the context. Context matters. The Ultimate Avengers had to know Namor was already dead, and then how do we know this? Because Namor was killed years before by execution after Atlantis was overtaken by an internal coup. His execution was not a secret to the people, and his never-decaying body was kept in repose for quite a while, frequently visited by Atlantis' citizens out of reverence. The body was only disposed of and sent adrift into the oceans because the current leaders were afraid that too many worshippers were going to turn into a revolt on their hands. So everybody in Atlantis anyway, everybody knew that Namor was dead. If Captain America and the original Human Torch were looking for Namor to get the original invaders back together to join their team and fight the Maker, Atlantis would have been their first stop, and they would have learned the truth from anybody they asked. Therefore, the Ultimates entered a compound and killed a bunch of men simply to recover a dead body that had been discarded by the rulers of his kingdom. So there wasn't some big threat. They weren't trying to rescue hostages. There wasn't an armed conflict taking place where they had to intervene. They just wanted basically a corpse, and they decided to kill dozens of people to get it without even asking first, or without even maybe just teleporting in to get it. Second, and probably most importantly, this is a comic book. It's a superhero comic. It's about superheroes. The operative word being there, heroes. Heroes value and defend human life. Even life they disagree with. Even life they hate. Heroes do not take life unless it's to defend themselves or others who can't defend themselves. And even then, only when necessary. That is at the core, that is the moral center of what it means to be a hero. Is doing what's right even if you don't like it. There's nothing heroic about what the Ultimates did in this issue. For those who would say, but you're defending Nazis. The only good Nazi is a dead Nazi. I'm not defending Nazis. Don't be stupid. That is a stupid thing to say in this context. I can hate an ideology and still believe in the sanctity of life. Those are two separate things. Just because you don't want people to die when they're not doing anything that's hurting anybody versus all Nazis should be killed and murdered right where they stand, no matter who they are. That's okay. Anyone who can't tell the difference between hating an ideology and defending the sanctity of life, if you don't know how to tell the difference between the two, please, I beg you, seek professional help. Because there's something loose up top. I'm not defending Nazis. I'm defending the sanctity of life. Heroes know this. Apparently, Dennis Camp does not. And that's a big problem if you're writing a superhero comic. Final thoughts when we think about the Ultimates number 10 from Marvel Comics. It's a sickening turn for the title when the writer transforms a developing team of heroes into a death squad for sentimental and ideological reasons. Dennis Camp's poorly constructed script serves as little more than a platform for his fetish to kill the wrong people, insert your wrong people definition of choice, but it's only marginally saved by Juan Frigeri's cool art. At this point, it's fair to say Dennis Camp may need some kind of intervention because more comics like this are actively sabotaging the Ultimates line, and somebody at Marvel needs to step in immediately. Therefore, the Ultimates number 10 earns a 4.5 out of 10. That score may even be a little bit generous. I think it's more related to the art than anything else because the subject matter and the way it's executed is disturbing. I'm not being flippant when I say that. But what do you think? Do you like the fact that basically let's just kill all the people we disagree with is somehow the theme of the day? Or am I just making a mountain out of a molehill? I don't think so, but if you disagree, let me know about it. Leave a thumbs up if you found this review helpful and drop a comment below with how you think this could have been done better. Because at this point, I think almost anyone could do it better at this in this juncture because, man, this is not a good direction anybody wants to go. Also, remember to click on the link in the description to read the written review, check out the variant covers and preview pages, and buy this comic to help support the channel. Your support, of course, is greatly appreciated. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, please click that subscribe button down below and hit that bell for notification. So thank you very much for joining, and stay tuned through the outro for more reviews just like this one.